Imagine this. You wake up one morning, and for the very first time in your life, you feel completely at peace. Not because something amazing happened, not because you got a promotion, fell in love, or won the lottery, but simply because you are breathing. Simply because right now, in this very moment, you are alive. Well, over 2,500 years ago, a man sat beneath a tree in northern India, and he discovered exactly how to feel that way every single day. That man's name was Siddhartha Gautama, and the world would come to know him as the Buddha, the awakened one. And here's the most extraordinary thing about what he discovered. It doesn't require years of meditation. It doesn't require renouncing your life. It doesn't require becoming a monk or moving to a monastery. The secret, the real secret, can be understood in 60 seconds, but its depth can fill a lifetime of wisdom. Today, we are going to explore that secret. We are going to go deep, very deep, into the teachings of the Buddha. We are going to understand why most people are unhappy, why happiness seems to slip through our fingers like sand, and more importantly, what we can do right now, today, to begin experiencing true, lasting inner happiness. So, settle in, take a deep breath, and let's begin this journey together. Before we understand the secret, we need to understand the man behind it. Siddhartha Gautama was born around 563 BCE in Lumbini, a region that is now modern-day Nepal. He was born into royalty, a prince, the son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya. From birth, he was surrounded by luxury, wealth, pleasure, and beauty. His father, determined to protect his son from the suffering of the world, built walls around the palace, beautiful walls, high walls, walls designed to keep out every sight of pain, old age, sickness, and death. Siddhartha grew up in this golden cage. He had everything a human being could desire: magnificent palaces, exquisite food, fine clothing, music, dance, and the love of a beautiful wife named Yasodhara, with whom he had a son named Rahula. From the outside, he had everything. He had achieved what most people spend their entire lives chasing. And yet, something was missing. A deep restlessness stirred within him. A question kept rising from the depths of his soul. Is this really all there is? Then came the day that changed everything. At the age of 29, Siddhartha ventured outside the palace walls for the first time, and what he saw shattered his world. On 4 separate journeys, what the texts call the 4 sights, he encountered an old man, bent over and frail, a sick man suffering with disease, a corpse being carried to cremation, and finally, a wandering ascetic, a monk, who carried nothing but a look of absolute serenity on his face. In one afternoon, Siddhartha saw the full spectrum of human experience. He saw that suffering was not something his father could protect him from. It was woven into the very fabric of human life. Old age comes for everyone. Sickness visits everybody. Death awaits every living soul. And yet that monk, that man with nothing, looked profoundly, undeniably happy. That night, Siddhartha made his decision. He left the palace. He left his wife and son. He left the throne that awaited him. He walked away from everything because he had come to understand that everything he had was not the source of happiness, and he needed to find what was. This moment in history is called the Great Renunciation, and it began one of the most important spiritual quests in human history. For 6 years, Siddhartha traveled, studied, practiced, and searched. He sat at the feet of the greatest teachers of his time. He practiced extreme asceticism, nearly starving himself to death. He pushed his body to the absolute limits of human endurance. He meditated for days without sleep. He denied himself every comfort and pleasure, but none of it brought the answer he was looking for. And then, one evening, he sat beneath a Bodhi tree, a fig tree, in a place called Bodhi Gaya. He made a silent vow: I will not rise from this spot until I have found the truth. He sat through the night. Temptations arose. Doubts assailed him. Visions of fear and desire danced before him. But he remained still. He remained present. He remained awake. And as the morning star rose on the horizon, something extraordinary happened. The veils of illusion fell away. The confusion dissolved. And Siddhartha Gautama experienced what the Sanskrit language calls Bodhi, awakening. He saw reality as it truly is. He understood the nature of suffering, its cause, its end, and the path that leads to its end. He became the Buddha, and the first words he is said to have spoken upon awakening were these: strange, so strange. All beings have Buddha nature, the capacity for awakening. Yet they wander in suffering because they do not see it. That is where our story truly begins. The very first teaching the Buddha gave after his awakening was delivered to 5 former companions in a deer park at Sarnath, near the ancient city of Varanasi. This teaching is called the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the discourse on setting the wheel of the Dhamma in motion. And at its heart are what we call the 4 Noble Truths. These 4 truths are not religious dogma. They are not articles of faith you must believe in. They are, in essence, a precise diagnosis of the human condition, like a doctor examining a patient, followed by a prescription for healing. The first noble truth is called dukkha, which is often translated as suffering. But this translation is incomplete. Dukkha is a deeper concept. It refers to a fundamental quality of dissatisfaction that permeates ordinary human experience. It is the feeling that something is always slightly off, that things are never quite enough, that happiness is always just out of reach. The Buddha said, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, being separated from what you love is suffering, being stuck with what you don't love is suffering, not getting what you want is suffering. But he went even further. He said that even pleasure contains the seed of suffering, because pleasure is impermanent. Every pleasant experience will end. Every beautiful thing will fade. Every moment of joy carries within it the anxiety of loss. This is dukkha. Not that life is only suffering, but that even within our happiest moments, there is a subtle undercurrent of unease, of grasping, of the fear that this too shall pass. Does this resonate with you? Think about the last time you achieved something you deeply wanted. A new job, a new relationship, a new house. There was joy, yes. But how long before the joy faded and you began wanting something else? How long before the shiny new thing became ordinary? This is not a pessimistic view. It is a realistic one. And the Buddha's point was not to make you depressed about this, but to help you see it clearly so you can begin to work with it. The second noble truth is called samudaya, the origin of suffering. And this is where things get truly fascinating. The Buddha taught that the cause of suffering is tanha, often translated as craving or thirst. This craving takes three forms: craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence and becoming, and craving for non-existence or destruction. What this means, in simple terms, is this: we suffer because we are constantly wanting things to be different from how they are. We want pleasure and resist pain. We want things to stay when they are good and want them to go when they are bad. We want to become more, be more, have more. And when reality doesn't match our expectations, which it almost never does, we suffer. This is extraordinarily important because it means that suffering is not caused by external circumstances. It is caused by our relationship to external circumstances. Two people can face the exact same situation: losing a job, going through a breakup, facing illness, and one person can be devastated while the other finds peace. What's the difference? Their relationship to the situation, their degree of craving and clinging. The Buddha wasn't saying you shouldn't feel pain. Pain is a natural part of life, but suffering, the prolonged, amplified, unnecessary anguish that we add on top of pain, that is largely created by our own minds. The third noble truth is called Nirodha, the cessation of suffering. And this is the good news, the revolutionary, world-changing good news. The Buddha declared, suffering can end. The craving that causes suffering can be released. There is a state of being, he called it nirvana, in which the mind is at peace, free from craving, free from aversion, free from the cycle of mental suffering. Now, nirvana is widely misunderstood. It is not death. It is not some heavenly realm you go to after you die. It is a quality of experience available right here, right now, in this lifetime. It is the experience of profound, unshakable inner peace, the experience of being completely at ease with what is. When the Buddha achieved enlightenment, he didn't go anywhere. He was still sitting under a tree. Birds still sang around him. The morning breeze still moved through the leaves. Life went on exactly as it was, but his relationship to life, his inner experience of it, had completely transformed. The fourth noble truth is the Magga, the path. Specifically, the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the Buddha's practical guide to ending suffering and finding inner happiness. And this is where the 60-second secret lives. We'll explore the Eightfold Path in detail shortly, but first, let's understand something even more fundamental. All right, here it is. The secret, the thing that the Buddha discovered sitting under that tree that changed the world, that has guided millions of people toward inner peace for over 2.5 millennia. Are you ready? Here it is. Happiness is not something you find. It is something you uncover. It was never outside of you. It was never in that job, that relationship, that achievement, that thing you've been chasing. It was inside you, underneath all the noise, all the craving, all the fear and resistance, waiting quietly patiently, like sunlight behind clouds. The clouds are not permanent. They are not who you are. They are mental formations, thoughts, emotions, habitual patterns of grasping and pushing away that have accumulated over years, perhaps lifetimes. And the practice of the Buddha's path is simply this: learning to let the clouds dissolve so that the natural warmth of your own inner light can shine through. That's it. That's the 60-second version. But let's not stop there, because the how is everything. Understanding something intellectually is not the same as living it. And the Buddha was nothing if not a supremely practical teacher. So let's go deeper. Let's understand why we're so good at creating clouds and how we can begin to clear them. The Buddha identified 3 core states of mind. He called them the 3 poisons, or the 3 fires, that are the root cause of human suffering. These are greed, or desire, hatred, or aversion, and delusion, or ignorance. Let's explore each one. The first poison, greed and desire. Greed doesn't just mean wanting money. It refers to any form of grasping, any state of mind that says, I need that to be happy. It's the mind that is perpetually oriented toward acquiring, attaining, achieving. It's the Instagram scroll in search of something that will finally satisfy. It's the relationship that you cling to so tightly that you suffocate it. It's the moment of eating a delicious meal and thinking about the next bite before you've even tasted this one. Greed operates on a fundamental misunderstanding that happiness lies in getting. But the Buddha observed something counterintuitive. The more you get, the more you want. The wanting never stops. The mind, habituated to craving, is like a fire. You can keep feeding it, but it will never be satisfied. It will only grow larger and hungrier. The antidote to greed is generosity and contentment, what the Buddhist tradition calls santosha. Learning to say, not resignedly, but genuinely, this is enough. Right now, I have enough. The second poison, hatred and aversion. Hatred is the counterpart to greed. Where greed moves toward, hatred pushes away. It's the mind that is oriented toward rejection, rejecting experiences, people, situations, feelings that it finds unpleasant. It's the irritation you feel in traffic, the anger that flares when someone challenges your opinion, the depression that comes from resisting life as it is. Like greed, aversion is based on a misunderstanding. The mind believes that if it can push the unpleasant thing away hard enough, long enough, it will eventually be free of it. But the opposite is true. What you resist persists. What you push away pushes back. The more energy you pour into fighting your own experience, the more entrenched and powerful that experience becomes. The antidote to hatred is loving kindness and compassion, what Buddhism calls metta and karuna. Learning to turn toward difficult experience with gentleness, with openness, with the same care you would offer a beloved friend in pain. The third poison, delusion and ignorance. This is the deepest and most fundamental of the 3 poisons, and it's the one that underlies the other 2. Delusion in the Buddhist sense is not about being stupid. It refers to a fundamental misperception of reality, specifically the misperception of what the self is. The Buddha taught that the deep root of human suffering lies in the belief in a fixed, permanent, independent self, what he called the illusion of ego, or the self-concept. This is the sense that there is a me at the center of experience, a solid, separate, unchanging entity that needs to be protected, enhanced, and gratified. This teaching, called Anatman or Anatta in Pali, is one of the most radical and profound in all of human philosophy. The Buddha was saying, the self that you think you are, that fixed, permanent, separate I, is a mental construction. It is a story the mind tells. It is not what you actually are. What you actually are is something more vast, more fluid, more interconnected than the ego self can grasp. Now, this teaching can be confusing, even frightening. If there is no self, what am I? But the Buddha's point was not to cause anxiety. It was to liberate. Because if you understand that the ego self is a construction, you can stop taking it so seriously. You can stop defending it so fiercely. You can stop organizing your entire life around its demands. And when that happens, when you loosen the grip of the ego, what remains is spaciousness, openness, a kind of natural ease and warmth, that is, happiness. Not the grasping, fleeting happiness of getting what you want, but the deep, quiet, luminous happiness of simply being. One of the most important and most challenging teachings of the Buddha is the teaching of anicca, or impermanence. Everything is impermanent, the Buddha taught. Everything, without exception, is in a constant state of flux, change, arising, and passing away. Nothing in this universe lasts. Every thought you have arises and passes. Every emotion comes and goes. Every relationship, every body, every civilization, every star in the sky, all are in motion, all are changing, all will eventually dissolve. Some find it terrifying, some find it sad, some, when they really sit with it, find it liberating. Here's why. Most of our suffering comes from trying to hold on to things that cannot be held. We try to make permanent what is impermanent. We try to freeze what is flowing. We cling to good times, resisting their ending. We cling to our youth, our health, our relationships, our identities. And when change comes, as it always does, we suffer because reality has violated our expectation. But what if we could accept impermanence fully? What if we could learn to hold everything lightly, to appreciate each moment fully, precisely because we know it will not last? There is a Japanese concept called mono no aware, often translated as the pathos of things, or the bittersweet beauty of impermanence. It's the feeling you get watching cherry blossoms fall, aware of their fleeting beauty, moved by it precisely because it is fleeting. There is grief in it, yes, but also a profound tenderness, an aliveness, a presence. This is what the acceptance of impermanence can feel like. Not resigned, not detached, but fully, tenderly, completely alive to each moment. The Buddha told a beautiful story to illustrate this. A woman named Kisa Gautama came to him in anguish, carrying the body of her dead child. Blinded by grief, she refused to accept that her child was gone. She begged the Buddha to give her medicine to bring her child back to life. The Buddha, with great compassion, agreed to help her. But first, he said, she must bring him a mustard seed from a household that had never known death. Kisa Gotami went from house to house. At every door she asked, "Has death visited this home?" And at every door the answer was the same, "Yes. My father died here, my sister died here, my husband, my child, my mother. Death has visited us all." By the time the sun set, Kisa Gotami understood. There is no home untouched by death. There is no life without loss. Suffering and impermanence are the universal inheritance of being alive. She returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed, but with something far more valuable, the beginning of acceptance. And with acceptance came slowly peace. This is not a story about giving up or becoming cold. It is a story about turning toward reality with open eyes and finding that within that openness, there is a profound capacity to be at peace, even with loss, even with change, even with the most difficult aspects of human life. Now let's get practical. The Buddha was not only a philosopher, he was a teacher, a guide, a therapist of the soul. And he gave his followers a very specific set of practices to help them walk from suffering to freedom. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is often depicted as a wheel with 8 spokes, suggesting that all 8 elements work together simultaneously, not in a linear sequence. They are grouped into 3 categories: wisdom, ethics, and mental cultivation. Let's walk through each one. Wisdom. Spoke 1, right view. Right view is the beginning and in some ways the heart of the entire path. It means seeing clearly, seeing reality as it actually is, rather than through the distorted lens of our conditioning, our fears, our desires, and our assumptions. In practical terms, right view means understanding the 4 noble truths. It means seeing that suffering arises from craving. It means understanding impermanence, the nature of the mind, and the interconnectedness of all things. Right view is not a set of dogmatic beliefs you adopt. It's a quality of seeing, an openness, a willingness to question your assumptions, to investigate your experience, to see things fresh, to be a beginner always. There is a famous Zen story about a scholar who visits a Zen master to learn about enlightenment. The master begins pouring tea into the scholar's cup. He pours, and the tea overflows, spilling across the table, dripping to the floor. The scholar watches, alarmed. "Stop! The cup is full," he cries. The master smiles. "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions, your own views, your own knowledge. How can I show you anything unless you first empty your cup?" It requires willingness to unlearn as much as to learn. Spoke 2, right intention. Right intention, also called right thought or right aspiration, is about the inner orientation behind our actions and thoughts. The Buddha identified 3 aspects of right intention: the intention of renunciation, letting go of grasping; the intention of goodwill, wishing all beings to be happy; and the intention of harmlessness, the commitment to cause no suffering. Notice that all 3 are fundamentally about moving away from the ego-centered perspective, from what can I get, toward what can I contribute, from how does this affect me, toward how does this affect others. This is not about self-denial or self-punishment. It's about the profound discovery that when we live from a place of generosity, goodwill, and care for others, we are naturally happier. The mind oriented toward giving is lighter and more joyful than the mind oriented toward getting. Ethics. Spoke 3. Right speech. The Buddha gave enormous attention to speech. He understood that our words have extraordinary power to heal or to wound, to connect or to isolate, to build truth or to spread confusion. Right speech has 4 components: speaking truthfully, speaking kindly, speaking helpfully, and speaking only when words add something positive to a situation. The opposite of right speech involves lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip. Think for a moment about how much of your speech each day is rooted in habit, reactivity, or ego. How much time is spent complaining, criticizing, gossiping? How much energy is poured into words that divide rather than connect? The Buddha said, "Whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for people will hear them and be influenced by them for good or for ill." Right speech is a practice of mindfulness in every conversation, asking, before we speak, is this true? Is this kind? Is this helpful? Is this the right time? Spoke 4. Right action. Right action refers to ethical conduct in our physical behavior. The Buddha gave 5 precepts as guidelines: refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct, refraining from intoxicants. These are not commandments given by a god. They are practical guidelines rooted in a deep understanding of cause and effect. When we act in ways that harm others, we create a disturbance in our own minds. The guilt, the shame, the anxiety, these are not punishments from outside. They are the natural consequences of acting against our own deepest values. Conversely, when we act with integrity, when our actions align with our values, there is a natural ease, a lightness, a quiet confidence that is itself a form of happiness. Spoke 5. Right livelihood extends ethical living into the realm of how we earn our living. The Buddha suggested that our work should not cause harm to others, should not involve deception, weapons, killing of animals, trade in human beings, or the sale of intoxicants. In the modern context, we might extend this to ask, does my work contribute to the well-being of others? Does it use my genuine gifts? Does it leave me feeling energized and purposeful, or depleted and hollow? Viktor Frankl, the great Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, observed that a sense of meaning and purpose is one of the most powerful factors in human well-being. Work done for money alone, work that feels empty and meaningless, is a source of deep, if often unacknowledged, suffering. Right livelihood is an invitation to consider, how can I align my work with my values, my gifts, and my genuine desire to contribute to the world? Spoke 6. Right effort. Right effort refers to the cultivation of wholesome mental states and the abandonment of unwholesome ones. The Buddha described 4 aspects: preventing unwholesome states that have not yet arisen, abandoning unwholesome states that have arisen, cultivating wholesome states that have not yet arisen, and maintaining wholesome states that have arisen. In practical terms, right effort is about the quality of energy we bring to our practice, not straining and forcing, not collapsing into passivity, but finding the middle way, alert, engaged, open, and balanced. The Buddha used the metaphor of a lute string. Tune the string too tight and it will snap. Tune it too loose and it produces no music. The right tension, the middle way, allows beautiful music to arise. This metaphor was not accidental. According to the legend, the Buddha came to this insight specifically because a musician was playing a lute in a boat passing nearby during his period of extreme asceticism. He heard the musician instructing his student about the lute strings, and in that moment, he understood the path to awakening is not in extremes, but in the middle way. Spoke 7, right mindfulness. This is perhaps the most widely known aspect of Buddhist practice, and with good reason. Right mindfulness, sati in Pali, is the practice of bringing clear, non-judgmental awareness to present moment experience. Mindfulness is not a relaxation technique, although it can be deeply relaxing. It's not about making your mind blank. It is the practice of waking up, of bringing your full attentive awareness to what is actually happening right here, right now, in this very moment. The mind, left to its own devices, is almost never in the present moment. It is lost in memories of the past, in worries about the future, in fantasies, in judgments, in stories about self and other. Research in psychology, including the famous Harvard study by Matthew Killingsworth, has found that the average human mind is wandering from the present moment nearly 47% of the time. And the data shows clearly a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. Mindfulness practice begins with something very simple: attention to the breath, not controlling the breath, simply noticing it, feeling the sensations of breathing, the rise and fall of the chest or belly, the feeling of air entering and leaving through the nostrils. And when the mind wanders, which it will, constantly, 1,000 times, gently, without judgment, bringing the attention back. This is the practice, not complicated, but profoundly transformative when sustained over time. As you practice mindfulness, you begin to notice the workings of your own mind with greater clarity. You see how thoughts arise and pass. You see how emotions come and go like weather. You see how the narrative of self is constantly being constructed and reconstructed. And in this seeing, in this clear, compassionate awareness, there is freedom. The Buddhist teacher Ajahn Chah said it beautifully: if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will have complete peace. Mindfulness is the practice of letting go, moment by moment, breath by breath, returning to the openness of pure awareness, where all things arise and pass, and where at the center there is profound peace. Spoke 8, right concentration. Right concentration, samadhi, refers to the deepening of attention into states of profound meditative absorption. In the Buddhist tradition, there are various levels of samadhi, each characterized by increasing stillness, clarity, and bliss. But even without reaching the deepest levels of meditative absorption, the cultivation of concentration brings enormous benefits. A concentrated mind is a clear mind. A clear mind is a calm mind. A calm mind is a happy mind. In our modern world, concentration is under assault. Every device, Every app, every notification is designed to fragment our attention. The cost is not just productivity, it is inner peace. A scattered mind is an anxious mind. The practice of concentration, of choosing to hold the attention steadily on one thing, of training the mind to rest in stillness, is an act of profound self-care. It is reclaiming your own mind from the forces that would fragment it. Together, these 8 elements constitute the path, not to some future paradise, but to inner happiness available right now, in this life, in this moment. One of the most beautiful teachings in Buddhism is the teaching of pratitya samutpada, dependent origination, or interdependence. The Buddha used the image of Indra's net, a vast, infinite net, with a jewel at each node, each jewel reflecting all the other jewels in the net. Nothing exists independently. Everything arises in dependence on everything else. You are not a separate, isolated self bouncing around in a universe of other separate, isolated things. You are part of an incomprehensibly vast web of relationship. The food you eat contains the sun, the rain, the soil, the labor of countless beings. The air you breathe has been breathed by every human being who ever lived. The ideas in your mind are woven from the threads of every book, every conversation, every experience, every ancestor who contributed to making you who you are. When you truly understand this, not just intellectually but viscerally, something extraordinary happens. The sense of being alone, of being separate, of being vulnerable in a hostile universe begins to dissolve. In its place arises a sense of belonging, of being held, of being part of something vast and beautiful. And this understanding naturally gives rise to compassion. When you see that all beings are interconnected, when you understand that every person you encounter is, in some deep sense, you, their suffering is your suffering. Their happiness is your happiness. The walls between self and other become permeable. The great Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh coined the beautiful word interbeing to describe this reality. We are. We exist not as separate selves, but as nodal points in a vast web of co-arising, coexisting, co-experiencing life. This understanding is not just philosophically profound, it is psychologically healing. Study after study in modern psychology has shown that the antidote to depression and anxiety is not isolation, it's belonging. It's the deep knowledge that you matter to others, and they matter to you. The Buddha was ahead of his time in understanding this. The practice of loving-kindness meditation, metta bhavana, which we'll explore in a moment, is one of the most potent tools he gave for cultivating this sense of love and belonging. Metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness, is one of the most beautiful and transformative practices in all of Buddhist meditation. The Buddha called metta the liberation of the heart. The practice is simple. You sit quietly, close your eyes, and begin to cultivate a feeling of warmth and goodwill. Beginning with yourself, you silently offer yourself these wishes. May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I live with ease. Then you expand this circle of goodwill, first to someone you love deeply, a parent, a child, a dear friend. You bring them to mind with warmth and offer them these same wishes. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, May you live with ease. Then you expand the circle further to neutral people, acquaintances, people you pass on the street. Then, and this is the challenging part, to people with whom you have difficulty, to those who have hurt you, to those you struggle to forgive. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And finally, you expand the circle to include all beings, all creatures, all people, all lives. Everywhere in the universe, may all beings be healthy. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. Now, when you first do this practice, it may feel forced. You may not genuinely feel loving kindness toward the difficult people in your life. That's okay. The practice is not about pretending. It's about intention, about regularly orienting the heart in the direction of love rather than resentment. Research on loving kindness meditation has shown remarkable results. Regular practice increases positive emotions, reduces symptoms of depression and anxiety, increases feelings of social connection and empathy, and even improves physical health markers. Barbara Fredrickson at the University of North Carolina has shown that metta practice increases what she calls positivity resonance, the moments of real human connection and warmth that are among the greatest predictors of well-being. The Buddha said, "Radiate boundless love toward the entire world, above, below, and across, unhindered, without ill will, without enmity." This is not naive idealism. It is a profound, scientifically supported path to inner happiness. One of the most important and most practical of the Buddha's teachings is the principle of the middle way. After years of living in the lap of luxury and then years of extreme asceticism, the Buddha arrived at a profound insight. Neither extreme leads to liberation. Pleasure-seeking and self-denial are both forms of the same trap. Both are forms of craving. The path to happiness lies not at either extreme, but in the middle. The middle way is often misunderstood as moderation. Don't have too much. Don't have too little. But it's deeper than that. The middle way is about finding the quality of mind that is neither grasping nor aversive, neither pushing toward nor pushing away, but meeting each moment with open, equanimous awareness. Think of it this way. When you are cold, your mind moves toward warmth. When you are hot, it moves toward coolness. When you are happy, you cling to that happiness and dread its ending. When you are unhappy, you struggle to get away from the unhappiness. In all of these cases, the mind is in motion, constantly in reaction, constantly in tension with what is. The middle way is the cultivation of a quality of mind that can remain stable at the center, not cold and indifferent, not passionless, but grounded, present, and at ease with the full range of experience. The Tibetan Buddhist tradition has a beautiful concept for this. Rigpa, the natural state of the mind, resting in itself, not moved by the waves of experience, but not separate from them either, like the ocean depths, undisturbed by the waves at the surface. This is not a static state. It does not mean being emotionless or passive. The Buddha himself laughed, wept, got frustrated, felt joy. But under all of these movements of emotion and experience, there was a bedrock of peace, a quality of presence that was unmoved, by changing circumstances. This is what the middle way points toward, and it is accessible to all of us through practice. Let's look at some stories from the Buddha's life and teachings that illuminate these principles in action. Because the Buddha was not only a philosopher, he was an incredibly wise, warm, and practical teacher who met people where they were. Story 1. The Arrow. Once, a monk named Buddha came to the Buddha with a list of philosophical questions. Is the universe eternal? Is it infinite? What happens to the self after death? Is the self identical to the body or different from it? The Buddha listened patiently, then said, Suppose, Buddha, a man is shot by a poisoned arrow. His friends bring a doctor to treat him, but the man says, I will not have this arrow removed until I know who shot it, what caste he is, how tall he is, what material the arrow is made of, what kind of wood the shaft is, what feathers are on the fletching. What would happen to that man, Buddha? He would die, said the monk. Precisely, said the Buddha. The spiritual life does not depend on the view that the universe is eternal. The spiritual life does not depend on any of these metaphysical questions. Whether or not these questions are answered, there is still birth, aging, death, grief, pain, sorrow, and I teach you the way to end that suffering. Let that be enough. This story captures something essential about the Buddha's approach. He was not interested in abstract metaphysics for their own sake. He was interested in one thing: the end of suffering. Everything else was secondary. Story 2. The Mustard Seed, Revisited. We mentioned Kisa Gautami earlier, the grieving mother. Her story continues. After she came to understand impermanence through the mustard seed exercise, she became one of the Buddha's most devoted followers. In time, she became fully awakened, and when she described her experience of enlightenment, she said, I used to carry my dead child from house to house, seeking help. Now I carry no burden. The arrow of grief has been removed. Now I am cooled, extinguished. I look with love at the world, and I am free. The same woman who had been shattered by grief became a beacon of wisdom and peace, not because her pain was denied or suppressed, but because she learned to meet it with open-eyed acceptance, and in that acceptance found freedom. Story 3. The Angry Brahmin. Once, a Brahmin who hated the Buddha came before him and hurled insults and abuse. The Buddha sat quietly and listened. When the man was finished, the Buddha asked him a simple question. If you prepared a feast for your guests and they declined to eat, to whom would the food belong? To me, I suppose, said the Brahmin, confused. Just so, said the Buddha. I do not accept your anger and your abuse. It returns to you. The Buddha was not a doormat. He was not suppressing his response. He had genuinely trained his mind to the point where anger no longer arose in response to anger, not because he had suppressed his feelings, but because he had understood their nature. And the teaching to us is this: you are not required to accept every emotion that is thrown at you. You are not required to be infected by other people's suffering, anger, or anxiety. The practice of mindfulness and compassion gives you the capacity to remain present and open with others without being swept away by their emotional weather. Story 4. Buddha and Angulimala Perhaps the most dramatic story of the Buddha's compassion is that of Angulimala, a serial killer who wore a garland of human fingers around his neck. His name literally means garland of fingers. He was feared throughout the kingdom. Many people had been murdered by him. The Buddha, upon hearing of Angulimala, walked directly into the forest where the killer lived. His followers begged him not to go, but the Buddha walked calmly toward the danger. Angulimala saw the robed figure walking toward him and ran to attack. But no matter how fast he ran, he could not catch the Buddha, who was walking at a normal pace. "Stop, monk! Stop!" Angulimala shouted. "I have stopped," the Buddha replied calmly. "It is you who has not stopped." Puzzled, Angulimala asked, "What do you mean?" And the Buddha explained, "I have stopped causing harm to all beings, but you, who continue to cause harm, you are the one who has not stopped." These words pierced something deep in Angulimala. He stood still, moved to his core by this exchange. He broke down, weeping, seeing for the first time the full weight of the suffering he had caused. He became one of the Buddha's disciples. He renounced violence completely. He transformed completely. And later in life, when he was attacked by a mob, angry about his past, he endured their blows without resentment, saying, "I have accepted this as the ripening of my past karma. I am at peace." This story speaks to the radical compassion and the radical belief in transformation that is at the heart of Buddhism. No one is beyond redemption. No one is beyond awakening. The capacity for peace lies within every human being, even those who have committed the gravest of wrongs. The word karma is often misunderstood in Western culture, where it has become a kind of cosmic scorecard. You get what you deserve. But the Buddhist understanding of karma is more subtle and more empowering. Karma literally means action, and the teaching of karma is simply this: every action, physical, verbal, and mental, has consequences, not as divine reward or punishment, but as natural cause and effect. When you plant kindness, kindness grows. When you plant anger, anger spreads. When you cultivate wisdom, wisdom deepens. This is not mystical. It is the practical reality of how the mind and the world work. More importantly, the Buddha emphasized mental karma, the intention behind the action. He said, "Mind is the forerunner of all actions. All deeds are led by mind, created by mind. If one speaks or acts with a corrupt mind, suffering follows, like the wheel following the hoof of an ox. If one speaks or acts with a serene mind, happiness follows, like a shadow that never departs." This is extraordinarily empowering, because it means that the quality of your experience is shaped, above all, by the quality of your mind, by the intentions you bring to your actions, by the degree of kindness, awareness, and wisdom that you bring to each moment. It also means that suffering is not pointless. Every difficult experience carries within it the seed of wisdom. Every challenge is an opportunity to practice, to grow, to deepen in compassion and understanding. The great spiritual teacher Pema Chodron says, "Nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know." Karma is not fatalism. It is not determinism. You are not locked into your past. Every moment is a fresh opportunity to plant new seeds, to act with greater awareness, greater kindness, greater wisdom, and to begin growing a different future. We have explored many teachings, many concepts, many practices. But if I had to distill everything the Buddha taught into a single sentence, it would be this: happiness lives in the present moment, and the present moment is always here. Think about this. Every moment of genuine happiness you have ever experienced was a moment of presence, a moment when you were fully here, fully alive, fully engaged with what is. The joy of seeing a beautiful sunset, the warmth of a genuine embrace, the satisfaction of a task completed with full attention, the pleasure of a delicious meal eaten mindfully, the wonder of a child's laughter. None of these experiences required extraordinary circumstances. What they required was presence, attention, openness, being here. And yet, how often are we here? Truly here? We are eating and thinking about tomorrow's meeting. We are with our children and scrolling our phones. We are in a beautiful place and photographing it for social media rather than inhabiting it. We are perpetually somewhere else, in the past, in the future, in our stories and fantasies, anywhere but here. The Buddha called this habit of mind wandering in samsara, the endless cycle of distraction, desire, and avoidance that characterizes ordinary consciousness. And the escape from samsara is not through achieving some new set of conditions. It is through waking up to the richness of what is already here. The Zen tradition has a saying: before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The circumstances don't change. The awareness that meets those circumstances, that changes. Right now, wherever you are, whatever is happening around you, you can take one conscious breath. You can feel the weight of your body in your seat. You can hear the sounds around you without labeling them as good or bad. You can be, for just this moment, fully here. That is meditation. That is presence. That is the beginning of the path to inner happiness. Modern neuroscience and psychology have spent decades studying the effects of Buddhist meditation practices, and the findings are remarkable. Science has largely confirmed what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Research by Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin has significantly different brain structure and function than non-meditators. They show increased activation in the left prefrontal cortex, an area associated with positive emotions and resilience. They show decreased activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and stress center. They demonstrate greater capacity for focused attention and emotional regulation. Studies on mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, developed by John Kabat-Zinn at the University of Massachusetts, have shown significant reductions in anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and stress-related illness. These benefits have been replicated across hundreds of studies in dozens of countries, in clinical populations ranging from cancer patients to military veterans to elementary school children. Research on loving-kindness meditation has shown that even brief sessions increase positive emotions, reduce implicit biases, increase feelings of social connection, and reduce symptoms of depression. A landmark study at Harvard Medical School found that after just 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation, participants showed measurable changes in brain structure, increased gray matter density in the hippocampus, associated with learning and memory. The posterior cingulate cortex, associated with self-awareness, and the cerebellum. They also showed decreased gray matter density in the amygdala, corresponding to their reported reductions in stress. The science is unambiguous. Meditation works. The practices the Buddha developed are among the most powerful tools available to human beings for cultivating well-being, resilience, clarity, and happiness. So how do we actually bring these teachings into our daily lives? How do we move from inspiration and understanding to genuine lived transformation? Here are practices drawn from the Buddhist tradition that you can begin today. Practice 1. Morning mindfulness. Begin each day with 5 to 10 minutes of mindful breathing. Before you reach for your phone, before you check your messages, before you engage with the world, sit quietly, close your eyes, and simply breathe. Feel the breath. Return to it whenever the mind wanders. This simple practice, done consistently, gradually transforms the default mode of your consciousness from reactive to responsive, from scattered to centered. Practice 2. Mindful moments throughout the day. Several times a day, perhaps before eating, before an important conversation. When you find yourself stressed or anxious, take 3. Feel each one fully. This is a micro-meditation practice that can be done anywhere, anytime, and that brings you back to the present moment repeatedly throughout the day. Constitutes life. Practice 7. The pause before reacting. When you feel reactive, when anger rises, when frustration flares, when the urge to speak sharply or act impulsively surges, practice the pause. Take 1 breath. Notice the sensation in your body. Ask yourself, is this response useful? Is it kind? Will I be glad I said or did this in 5 minutes? This single practice, the pause, is one of the most powerful tools in the entire Buddhist tradition. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies freedom. We have covered much ground in this journey. We've explored who the Buddha was, what he discovered, the 4 Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, loving kindness, impermanence, interdependence, and practical daily practices. But before we close, there is one more teaching I want to leave you with, and it may be the most important of all: compassion for self. In Western cultures and in many spiritual traditions, there is a deep tendency toward self-criticism, self-judgment, shame, and harsh inner dialogue. We hold ourselves to impossible standards. We berate ourselves for every failure, every flaw, every moment when we do not live up to our own ideals. The Buddha had a lot to say about this, and his message was clear. Harshness toward yourself is not a virtue. It is not humility. It is not the path. It is a form of suffering, and it is completely unnecessary. Kristen Neff, a psychologist at the University of Texas, has developed a body of research on what she calls self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend in pain. And her research shows that self-compassion is one of the most powerful predictors of psychological well-being, not self-esteem, which depends on external achievement and comparison. Self-compassion, unconditional kindness toward oneself. The Buddha's teachings are full of this quality. He never shamed his students. He met everyone, the murderer Angulimala, the grieving mother Kisa Gautami, the arrogant Brahmin, the confused monk, with the same quality of open, warm, patient compassion. And he extended that same quality toward himself. The middle way was not discovered through self-punishment. It was discovered through wisdom and self-understanding. When you stumble on this path, when you get distracted, when you react, when you fail to be the person you aspire to be, the Buddhist response is not self-flagellation. It is a gentle acknowledgement. There it is. The mind wandered. Gently come back and return to the practice. This quality of gentle, persistent return, not giving up, not berating yourself, just patiently, kindly returning, is itself a form of love. And over time, it is transformative beyond measure. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "To be beautiful means to be yourself. You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself." The 6-0, second secret, revisited. We began this journey with a promise that the Buddha's secret to inner happiness can be understood in 60 seconds. And now, having traveled through the depths of his teachings, I hope that 60-second truth has filled out into something rich, alive, and real. Here it is one final time. The happiness you are looking for is not somewhere out there. It is inside you, right now, in this moment. It is not something to be achieved or acquired. It is something to be uncovered, layer by layer, breath by breath, moment by moment, by turning toward your own experience with openness, honesty, and compassion. The clouds are not permanent. They are not who you are. They are made of craving, aversion, and the illusion of a separate self. And every time you choose presence over distraction, every time you respond with kindness rather than react with fear, every time you let go of what cannot be held and open to what is here, you let a little more light through. This is the path, not a destination you arrive at once and for all. A daily practice, a way of being, a love affair with the present moment that deepens over a lifetime. The Buddha spent 45 years after his awakening walking the dusty roads of India, teaching anyone who wanted to listen, kings and paupers, scholars and farmers, the wise and the suffering. He asked nothing in return. He demanded no worship. He built no temples. He simply offered, again and again, the same essential invitation. Come and see. Don't believe it because I say it. Don't believe it because it's written in any book. Try it for yourself. Examine your own experience. See if this is true. That invitation stands today, 2,500 years later, as fresh and as radical as it was the day it was first spoken. May you find the peace that lies within you. May you walk the path with joy and courage. May you be happy. May you be free. And may all beings everywhere, without exception, be happy, be healthy, be safe, and live with ease. Thank you for watching. If this video touched something in you, please share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more journeys into timeless wisdom. And remember, the present moment is always here, always welcoming you home.